Hey, all, Dan here. CES has ended. It was a great CES for us. I don't know about anybody else who went. I had a lot of tired feet, what I got to say. But anyway, I want to follow up a bit on HRTFs. We're still talking about that, and things happen. Remember, a transfer function is simply an equation. It's a recipe of you give me this input, I'm going to give you this output. That's all a transfer function is. And our head basically is a recipe, how things come in, how sound hits us and what it does. And we use HRTFs. We'll get into tomorrow how we use HRTFs for localization and things like that, why they're important from an acoustic standpoint. But remember, an HRTF is a head-related transfer function. Transfer function, all it is a recipe. It says if you give me an input, you're going to get an output, and our head affects it. So I want to go a little bit more into how sound propagates when it hits an obstruction. Because remember, a sound wave is just a wave in air, right? That's all it is, right? Isn't that cool looking? So yeah, it's just a wave in air, and when it hits something, it either stops, or it goes around it, or it's reflected, that kind of a thing. So that's what happens. So I wanted to cover a little bit about what happens as a wave hits something in air, like our head, for instance. So imagine I get this sound back here, and it comes hit my head and goes on. What do I hear? So this little video here, this little picture here shows, basically the red is, this, and there's an obstruction here, something like that, okay? So at the high frequencies it comes through, which is this black line, you got this quick oscillation, it does refract around it, so it does bend around this obstacle, right? But it kind of does so slow, it kind of gets this shadow here where things are. Whereas a low frequency, which is doing this, the bigger amplitude, low frequency, when it hits it, it kind of says, yeah, I don't care, I'm going to skip right by it. So an obstruction, basically, the higher in frequency, the more strong the obstruction comes. So an obstruction may be complete at high frequencies, but at low frequencies, it doesn't even really exist. So that's one of the things to understand. So, a bigger schnoz like mine, or bigger ears like, mine, it happens when you get older, things keep growing, or a big head, affects the way sound will transmit through, low frequency and high frequency, relative to something that's a lot smaller. So that's why there will be different tones that come through. At high frequencies, things will be blocked more by some of these objects on my face than a low frequency would. And so we're going to get into why that matters. But what we can understand is, number one, it's a head-related thing. It's a transfer function in that it's changing the input sound, and that the shape of my head, the size and the dimensions of my head, affect the way the sound will pass around and get to my ear canals ultimately. So the sound coming from one side is going to affect me differently than somebody with a different shaped head as far as what this ear hears. So that's what happens. Physical obstructions of different size will affect frequencies different. And it tends to be that higher frequencies are blocked by objects more than low frequencies. Okay? So that's today's little cue. We'll go into why HRTFs matter, from a localization standpoint in the next few days. Have a good one all. See you. Bye.